The minutes?
Yes. No, they're not picking them up for the speakers. Everybody just talk as loud as you can into your mic.
I don't know if I can get much closer.
Oh, now we hear
Is that
the
better?
speakers, yeah.
Is that helping?
Testing, testing.
I can't get much closer to the microphone than this.
Sure you can, Arnie.
Wow. It might get ugly.
It might not help, though.
No.
For Zappa, they can hear me, it's the audio. Okay, can somebody now talk?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Sue, can you hear us? Any better?
That is better. You're louder, yes.
Okay.
And status says audio should have the same.
Yeah.
I can't hear her very
No, I can't. It just sounds like a tunnel.
Fortunately,
But
we don't have to.
That's her talking to us, so.
well. And no one's on. No select board members are on Zoom.
Right.
I went home and I went, I could Zoom it, and then I came down. It's
Good
too
for you.
pretty. There's not a snowstorm.
That's right.
But they said you just.
How are you?
What has changed is my Apple laptop down here underwater and now in the microphone.
Right, we know that on Zoom you can hear us. The problem is when Zoom speaks, you can't hear it in the room. But I think they can hear us on the computer. We're gonna have to go. I'm not doing anything. She can hear us. All right, go ahead, Arnie.
So she's okay with,
Yeah, she's okay.
so it's just when she's speaking, coming this way?
Yeah.
Would that be true of anybody that's on?
Anybody speaking on Zoom is gonna come through the laptop, not the speakers, but hopefully there won't be much.
That's for me, I'm not here.
It's,
Oh.
go ahead. You can start.
The first item on our agenda is to approve our minutes from our May 3rd Select Board meeting.
Make a motion to approve the May 3rd, 2023 Select Board meeting minutes.
Second?
So Lee is the motion, Ariana's the second. Anybody have any changes, corrections, errors, omissions, anything on the minutes?
I have none.
I have none.
I have a typo. Visitors present, QH needs to be capitalized.
Okay.
And I won't be voting because I wasn't here.
Anything else from anybody? All those in favor of approving the minutes with one correction stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next item on our agenda is citizens' comments. If there is someone here that would like to speak to the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. Are there any citizens' comments? Mr. Kelly? See if that microphone works.
Microphone's not working?
Well,
No, speak into it because Zoom needs it. Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Frank Kelly. I'm a member of the Chester Conservation Committee as well as the Green Up Day Coordinator. And I'd like to say thank you to, first, the Chester Conservation Committee for all the work that they did during Green Up Day this year. We filled the dumpster. Woo! It was an arduous task, but it was a very full dumpster. I'd like to put a shout out to the Popple Dungeon crew, who are always there, and they've been there since the start. Not you necessarily, Mr. Gustafson, but others before you. The Smoke Share crew, they're the same. They don't get in touch with me, so I like those people a lot. Green Mountain Turnpike was well covered. The Flamstead Matson folks had it nailed down. The Chester Conservation Committee, as well as my neighbors, because my neighbors kind of cover for me. Thank you for my neighbors who also went out to Dean Brook Road. We got the whole community, as far as I know. Chester Town Office, Whiting Library, Chester Hardware, and Erskine's were all instrumental in getting bags out to people. 250 bags went out, and at last count, which wasn't a very accurate count, they all came back. If anyone's hoarding them, I don't think they're worth much. So those came back. And everyone in between, from all corners of Chester, our community comes together for this event to make things look better for as long as they can. A couple of side notes. At some point, it might be advantageous to encourage this group of people to maybe clear their culverts. I know I picked up a stump, and this stump was starting to cause a little bit of erosion because it was during that wet spell. So we might be able to use that group of people to do a little bit of green up and a little bit of culvert clearing. And lastly, a request, if I may be so bold, that in 2024, would you folks be kind enough to appoint a co-coordinator in the person of Carrie King? I do the logistics of the green up routes and everything else, and Carrie makes it fun. She does green up with, she had green up seeds down or something like that, so she had a really neat program at the library that makes it fun for people to come together. And the more folks that we can involve with Green Up Day and making it fun, it would be great. Someone in another community had a picnic, and I was just like, no, I'm not fit for a picnic. I am kind of gross. I'm working outside all day. Picking ticks off of me. But I can't say thank you enough to all the people of Chester who have been part of the Green Up Day experience. And it's nice to have my neighbors here because they were part of it too. So. And I know all of you were out there. So. That's the Green Up Day report for this year.
And a big special thank you to you, Frank, for coordinating all this thing over all the years you've been doing it and stuff. And it's interesting because, you know, Vermont looks the way it looks, and it's because of the volunteers in this town and all over the state that take this pretty serious and do what they do. And it's fantastic. You do a great job, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnie. And again, thank all of you for your parts and pieces. If there's anything that I can do to make next year better, do let me know. And other than that, we'll just keep doing the best we can. And for all those out there who happen to have things fall out of their vehicles, just try and land it into a trash can, please. Or if not, just have it stay closer to the road, because when it goes on the other side of the ditch, it's really hard to get. So we appreciate that. And I'll be reporting out to Green Up Vermont the wonderful work that the folks at Chester did. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Frank.
you.
Kathy Giertino. I've spoken about short-term rentals before, you all know me, but, and I spoke to Julie today. First of all, thank you for putting the ordinance together and making it happen, you and the Planning Commission. Julie and I were talking today about the Housing Committee, and maybe this is something they should deal with. But then I got thinking about it. If a year goes by, and it probably will be a year before the Housing Committee can actually have any impact, we could have another 10 or 20 unhosted short-term rentals in town. And I think that it's important that we act soon to put a cap on the number of unhosted short-term rental. The hosted ones are wonderful because you've got a neighbor and you've got someone living in the community and they're bringing in other people. But the unhosted, they're just an empty house, kind of taking away from a neighborhood and taking away from the community in general. I spoke to Todd Thomas in Morristown. I was listening to the news a couple months ago, and they have put a moratorium on anyone coming into town and establishing an unhosted short-term rental. And I asked him how he did that, and what he said, there was a lot of discussion. What they came up with was a compromise. They put a freeze on what was there. So if it was there, it could stay there. So if someone had one short-term unhosted, or they had three, they could keep them unless they sell the house, in which case then it's done. But they didn't want to get into all kinds of legal logistics and everything with what was already there and established. So they just put a freeze on it. But after a certain date, that was it. You couldn't move into town, buy a house, and set it up with Vrbo or Airbnb. And they were running into the same problems that I see we're going to run into, which is normal families who want to live here cannot compete with the money from outside. They have to go through inspections and get mortgages and so on, where someone from Connecticut or New York or Philadelphia can come in with cash and buy it. And I have a friend in Claremont who does both sides of the river. He's a realtor. And the last time I spoke to him, he said it's been terrible because he has local people that he represents, and they can't buy anything. Every time they find a house that they like, it's gone, just like that. The people that are buying with cash don't have to go through the same steps. And I keep speaking to more and more young people who are either leaving, or their friends have left, or they're thinking about it because they can't live here the way they want to live here. I also am concerned, again, about the fire department, which is all volunteer. If we lose young families, pretty soon there'll be nobody to fill in for the people who all want to step away from it. We're still looking at a school bond because the school needs work. We're losing kids from Cavendish, we're losing kids from Ludlow, we're losing kids from this community. Right now, we only have 50 or 55 kids graduating. In 5 years, they may be going to Bellows Falls or Springfield, not even using the school, and we'll still have a 20-year bond floated. So I just really, really wish that this is something that could be discussed now and something done really soon before it erodes the community, which it will do. And not too long either, you know, and it's happening so quietly, we aren't even aware of how many houses, and now we're getting that, we haven't got that information yet. have
No,
we?
they're building it now.
They're
pretty-
doing it
it's
now,
pretty
but it'll be
close.
very
Yeah, it's very
interesting to
close.
find out, and will they distinguish between hosted and unhosted?
Yes.
That'll be a very important piece of information to get, just to see. I mean, I've got my neighborhood is turning over right now, and it really scares me that I may not have neighbors pretty soon. I may just have a lot of empty houses with strangers coming and going. We already have 3 in our neighborhood, and we have 2 hosted. The hosted ones are wonderful. The unhosted ones are empty houses that just sit there until strangers come and go. So I really hope that everyone begins to really realize how serious this is for our community, and some action is taken soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for that information. We have discussed this earlier when we first got the agency involved with collecting all the data, and I think once that is completed, that we do have a clear picture of what we have in this town as far as hosted and unhosted, we will revisit and have another discussion about what action to take, if any, from that point on.
I said that if anyone wants to call him and talk to him about how they proceed, he'd be more than happy to help.
That was in Morrisville.
Morristown.
Morristown. Yeah. Well, thanks for that information, Kathy. Anyone else for any other citizens' comments?
Can I make a comment to the citizens?
I guess that
Steve,
works both
if you want to
ways.
put that shade down so you're not being blinded. I was going to do it, but Frank will get it for you. Thank you. Thank you, Frank.
think that works.
Is it that one?
Next item on our agenda is old business. And Julie, can you take us through our old business list?
I can. Just a couple quick things. Canal Street boundary line, just to circle back with you guys on that one. Jim is preparing the quitclaim deeds, so that will be completed soon. Signage, the signage project is out to bid. Bids are due June 9th. So construction will take place for the wayfinding plan. That will go into effect this summer. The community garden will have their kickoff meeting on May 27th, so community is invited to that. As of now, I don't think there's a time has not been set. I haven't seen a time, but the Academy Committee, that's something we've talked about on and off for a while. So I am beginning to form that. If anybody is interested, this would be for working with me on the restoration and renovation of the interior of that building, coming up with a plan for its use going forward. We'll be working closely with the Historical Society, of course, as well. So that's just, it doesn't need to be an official committee of the select board. It's just I'm forming a group, gathering people around that want to be a part of that.
And would that be also the grounds, not just the building, or?
Well, right, yes, it would be the whole thing. I mean, any lease to the Historical Society going forward, you know, it's going to encompass all of it. But at the moment, it's really repurposing the interior. How are we going to use the interior of that building long-term? And then figuring out the restoration and renovation of the interior so that it's a more usable space. So that would be kind of what we would be talking about. So if anybody is interested on that, let me know.
Julie, I would be interested if you want to loop me in on everything.
Great.
It's a grand old building, and
a beautiful
it's got a brand-new roof on it, and the windows were done, I don't know how many years ago. So the exterior is basically pretty in good shape, intact. And so now it's the insides and use and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building.
Yep, and it needs to start with a reuse plan. So if anybody else is interested, just reach out to me. And then just letting everybody know, Sil, who is my bookkeeper, is retiring this summer. She has not given an exact date. She's being gracious and letting me find somebody first and then giving her official date. So just to kind of let everybody know, we're going to be changing, again, like I do with every position. When anybody retires, we take a step back, look at what do we need, what slots are we looking to fill. And Sil and I have been discussing for about a year now, and we did talk with Ron, our auditor. The position really is not a bookkeeper position in local government anymore. There's a lot more to it. So we are, I'm going to be looking to increase it to a staff accountant position. We don't need a CPA, but you need more than a bookkeeper. And increasing the abilities will all, that skill set will also allow me to take the grant management piece and hand off to this person. They could handle the finance portion of the grant. So I could write them, I could manage the project, they could handle the finance part of it, which would save me many hours on grant work. So there's a few things. They could also handle all the HR, so I wouldn't have to do that part as well. So that's what we're going to be advertising for. We're working on a job description for that now. So that'll be going out in the next, I would think, next week, just to keep you all informed on that.
That's
So
a big change.
it's a big change. We're at that point over the next couple of years. A lot of our staff have been 30 years plus, and
Re-examining the positions.
absolutely, and that's the
duties
time to
stuff.
do it. How can we do things better, more efficient, and, yeah. So that's it for old business.
Anybody on the select board, anything for old business?
No. I have nothing. Nope.
Not at this time.
Next item on our agenda is a coin drop application, and it's from the Ruck Up Incorporated, and it's a veterans organization that's been here before. I believe they're based out of New Hampshire, but they service veterans in Vermont and New Hampshire. They've requested coin drop before in the past, and they're here again for that request. And I guess Mr. Legacy?
Legacy, George.
George, and can you tell us a little bit about the organization and the purpose for this coin drop?
Our organization is a 503c1 nonprofit organization. We get no funding from the federal government or the state on that. We service veterans, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. We got a few come out of Connecticut, a couple out of Maine. We got one that's in Oregon, moved back to Oregon. This is the way that we make our funds and keep our funds, not only with grants that we write and get, but we also do fundraising during the summer. And this is the one that I'm in charge of, is the coin drops. I do coin drops in Keene, New Hampshire, Bellows Falls, Chester, Newfane, Londonderry, and Guilford. And we earn quite a little bit. I'm happy with what we get for the income on that there. I was hoping I'd had another vet with me tonight. His name is Ian Forgy. He is going to be filling in for me this summer. I'm headed in for a stem cell transplant here shortly to help with my cancer. And so he's going to be doing that. My wife has been doing my paperwork for me. And I'm pleased that I could be here tonight to talk with you and meet with you. Coin drop we're looking is for August 19th. Way out in the future with a rain date of the 20th. And we asked for a rain date because we have been rained out a couple of times. Once here in Chester, we didn't come back because it was after 1 o'clock, and we were happy with what we had accomplished. But it's been great. Had good luck with the people here coming through Chester and had a good response from everybody. The antique store where we park our vehicles has been very cooperative. The gentleman who owns the property where we set our pop-up at and work off in there has been very helpful for us and helping us. And the town select board has been phenomenal. You folks have stood behind us the last couple of years, and it's been greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you, Mr. Legacy. Any questions from any board members? I remember over the years some of the presentations and the good work that you do, and the fact that it's local is very important. So it's helping people in our community around here. It's not a national organization or whatever. It helps people that other people know. There's a connection to the town, there's a connection to the area, and that, I think, means a lot to the people when they support something like this.
Julie has, we gave, I think, did you give her a copy of that? Of what we accomplished last year. It's a 2-page report, and I should have brought more tonight, but I didn't.
No, I don't have that. But that's okay.
It's, when you get it emailed to us or sent to us, and we'll make sure it gets distributed to the board members so they could take a look at it and stuff.
Enough copies for everybody here.
Yep.
I apologize for not having it with me tonight. All right. My wife, Pam.
Rupert was based on 3 pillars: advocacy, counseling, and an outreach program. The advocacy part helps with the veterans apply for their VA benefits and SSDI. Last year, it was almost $2.5 million that they were able to win for the vets in their claims. And a claim can take at least 2 years, if not more. So it's not only a lot of work for our DSO, but also for the vet himself. The counseling is a licensed counselor. It's one-on-one. He has group sessions. We also have an AA group that's connected. The outreach program helps veterans and their families keep and maintain their housing. Last year was 314 vets and $83,300 that went out. We worked with other organizations to make sure, because the funds are limited as to what we can give and how often we can give. We have a food bank and clothing bank that last year gave out 2.95 tons of food and clothing. That's all donated to a cost, estimated cost is $59,500. So that's what we do. You know, we have.
That's quite a list.
Yeah.
It's quite a list, it's quite a lot of money when you consider that all the money that comes in is donated and through our grants, our fundraisers, and the coin drops, which have been instrumental in allowing us to do what we do.
And it's all volunteers.
It is completely all volunteer. It is probably one of the few 501c3 organizations that I know of. Nobody gets, the board doesn't get any, even travel time. You know, so, yeah.
That's what makes your organization, I think, special in a way, when
And there
you
is at
have
least
things
one
like that going
I know
on.
of here in Chester
Yep.
that has been helped, so.
All right, thank you for that information. I would entertain a motion to approve this coin drop by the Ruck Up organization for the date of August 19th with a rain date of August 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Heather's the motion, Lee Gustafson's the second. Any discussion on this? Any further discussion on it? All those in favor of approving this is the second coin drop, I believe, of the year. And
This is the
so
second one.
we have a policy in the town that we only have 2 coin drops a year, and I'm glad it's worked out. All those in favor of approving the coin drop?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not going to even ask if anybody's opposed, but.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it.
And good luck with your battle, sir.
Yes, thank you.
We always do.
That's the favorite spot. The next item on our agenda is a grand list extension request. Julie, can you help us out with that?
I'm actually going to defer to Kathy Hasbrook, who is one of our listers.
Oh.
I'm going to let her explain this in greater detail.
The big thing I got out of it, Kath, is the software hasn't been released yet.
Yeah,
The software, what?
hasn't been released yet.
Hasn't been
Right,
released
well,
yet.
It did get released Friday, and then Saturday morning, they said, never mind, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it the old way. And we may still manage to get it out as planned, but I didn't want to,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know what kind of police there are if the grand list is late, but I don't want to have to get bailed out, so. It's an unusual year. They don't generally go through this kind of starting and stopping with, do it this way, no, do it that way, do it, yeah.
And this is the state that delegates how it's supposed to be done?
Yeah. The state has a project called VTPI, that's Vermont Property Information Exchange. And they're trying to move all the information needed to produce tax bills into one database. And it's it's a web application, so I could theoretically do the work from my house on the internet. But honestly, I've worked in IT for 35, probably more years, and I have never seen a project like this before. And I guess it's not much of a surprise to people who have lived in the state and watch the state undertake other things. So the process of collecting information and putting it in this other database just has seemed to not work out very well. So this year, the tax bills will be produced the way they always have been produced, and the homestead declarations are getting put into the NEMRIC system the way they've always been put in, and maybe next year.
So it's just a 30-day extension, just in
Yeah.
case you need it. It seems
Yeah.
like you probably might be able to make the deadline anyways, but this gives you a little cushion,
Right.
because it sounds like somebody is,
So if we
it's in-
can't get it.
in flux, it's
Yes.
changing. Any questions from any board members? I would entertain a motion to file a grand list extension request and authorize the chairman to sign it.
So moved.
Second.
Lee's the motion, Heather's the second. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Print name.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kathy.
Kath. Good luck. Next item on our agenda is, I know there's been a lot of discussion about housing in the state and at the local level also. And this is our attempt at a housing commission. Julie, can you take us through this?
I can. So, as I have mentioned to you guys over the past couple meetings, I think Chester is in a place now where standing up a housing commission would be a next step for us to start really looking at and addressing housing in our area. I would prefer a commission versus a committee, because I think it's important for this to be a group that has some autonomy, and is a group that I would expect is not just going to sit and come up with ideas, but will be a group that takes action in things. There will be a very close relationship with the Planning Commission. Housing and the Planning Commission's work really dovetails nicely. So we will want to have good connection there. And of course, the select board you will appoint and you will be updated, as we do with all other committees and commissions that we currently have. But I have given you a draft of kind of a housing commission charter type of, for lack of a better term. I have modeled this much after Essex, who is a success story in the state. Definitely a very different dynamic in Essex than in Chester, Vermont, right? So we need to tailor it to us. But it is a success story of Essex Junction is relatively small. It's now separated out from Essex. And they have done things quite well. So I figured they would be a good example to follow. So a few tweaks and changes, obviously, to conform this more to Chester. And the charter part is, and we can come up with a different name if you'd rather. This is a draft, there may be changes we want to make to that. What I really was hoping to get from the board tonight is the authority to go ahead and start advertising for commissioners to sit on this. What we are looking for is a group of individuals with a certain different skill sets relating to housing, or, transferable skills, right, that can be part of this discussion. It's a complex topic. And so, having people from the nonprofit sector for development, from the for-profit sector development, real estate agents, finance people, legal would be nice if we could get that. And yeah, so that's basically what I'm looking for. I do have several people already that meet those requirements, that have reached out. But really what I was hoping to get from you guys tonight is a willingness to move forward. So I could go ahead and get that advertisement out, knowing that it will take, a good 30 days to advertise, and then you'll want to interview and appoint, and so it would be a couple months by the time we got a commission actually set up and commissioners appointed.
So I would think that, looking over this model policy and stuff, that we'll give it a read, not tonight, but over the next, till the next meeting and stuff. Everybody look it over, see the different parts of it, see if there's anything that you think needs to be tweaked or changed, get a little more familiar with it, and then at our next meeting, we could have a little more in-depth discussion on it. Or if you feel comfortable, we could talk about it tonight also. It depends on the consensus of the board on how you would like to go.
Can I ask a question? This may be a procedural question, I'm not sure. Does this have to be in place before you can advertise for interested
It doesn't need to be
folks?
in place before we advertise. It certainly should be in place before you appoint.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only thing, and this may be for our conversation at the next meeting, so the one thing I did want to talk about, and the only experience I can reflect on is the Cannabis Commission last year, which was impaneled at 7. Is there a reason why we couldn't say between 5 and 9, and then pending the applicants, pending what we hear and see, figuring out what it balanced is, but by starting with 9, that feels
It's a lot.
a lot to wrangle to initially create. Even if we create the charter, they're going to have to figure out how they operate, and so starting small and growing just feels,
Okay, so this says up to 9. Do you want me to make it more specific, say between 5 and 9?
I
Between
think
5
that
and
gives
6?
us more latitude once we're reviewing people to say, this is the perfect 5, or wow, if we add these 2, 7 is great, or we've got 30 people, let's pick 9.
Okay.
Like, it gives
Yep.
us the ability to frame that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns that I saw on there too, that just the number itself, to try to get 9 people that.
And I wanted to be
And
sure
maybe
that we
they're out there,
don't
but-
advertise for 9, and then next week we all decide it should be 5, then that feels less good
Yep.
than saying it's going to be between 5 and 9.
Yep.
And we go from there.
Okay.
Other than that, I would say, yeah, we should start at least letting the community know that they should send in their interest, as long as it works procedurally, that we still get to review this next time.
Yeah, you'll just need to
So-
drop before you appoint.
The feeling I'm getting is that we definitely want to proceed with this, so it's just a matter of.
With a commission, absolutely. I
would
I
think
do.
so.
Yeah.
Yep. So can I ask another question? Related to the difference between a committee and the commission. So you mentioned that the commission would have more autonomy. So in what way would that be beneficial relative to the purpose that's outlined in this document?
If it's simply a committee, most of what they're going to do is going to have to be approved by the select board.
Okay.
Whereas a commission has a little more freedom.
And more requirements also as far as
Correct.
minutes and meetings, and it's more formal, whereas a committee is a little
Right.
less,
They're going to have to follow the open meeting law if it's a committee. I mean,
If it's,
I mean, if
if it's a commission or a committee, even if it's a committee of the select board, it will have to. But think about your planning commission, right? The housing commission would be very similar. They're not going to adopt any bylaw or anything along those lines, right? They could draft that and it would come to you, and they would actually that would flow through the planning commission. Trying to think of what an example. Maybe they're going to write a grant and go out and get funding to help with a housing study. Maybe they're going to bring in developers to talk to them about different strategies. Maybe they're going to, whereas committees are a little bit more limited. I can get you the statutes on that. Would that be helpful for your next time?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
But I guess
Just occurred to
the underlying question I have is, looking at the purpose that's stated here, the commission would advise the town manager, select board, planning commission, other municipal boards and committees relative to the needs of the community, et cetera. So if it's just an advisory role, okay, so it's going to be a little bit different.
It's a
than
little
that.
more than advisory role. What they're going to advise the town on is that they obviously can't obligate town funds.
Right.
They can't, so that's where they're going to advise the town in that capacity. So maybe we need to make that a little clearer.
But I guess the other question, I'm all in favor of this, by the way. I'm not trying to nitpick this for whatever reason. But I guess the question is, I'm trying to understand the actual function of this commission as it interacts with us and the planning commission and other boards and committees, and what the actual decisions that will be made, how they're going to work to promote and bring housing, affordable housing into Chester. So I understand that a mix of people who have the skill sets necessary for development, et cetera, would be invaluable. I'm just not sure yet how they're going to work in a way that will bring affordable housing, whether they're the ones who are going to be the developers, so to speak, and hire out people, or is that going to be somebody else, or we're going to bring in developers who already have that kind of skill set?
It could be all the above.
Okay.
So what I have envisioned is that you're going to start with, probably their very first task is going to be gathering all the survey data that's already out there about housing and fill in any gaps, do any surveys or studies themselves to fill in any gaps about what are the housing shortages in Chester, what are our needs? You know, we talk about we need housing across the spectrum. Is that true? I don't know that. So they're going to need to, get their baseline, right, of what is it that Chester actually needs. And then I think it's doing the work to identify where can housing go, where within the village limits already, where can infill housing be done? What does that look like? What is there for land? Immediately right outside our village where water sewer could be expanded to, what is the potential for housing and for different types of housing? Because I don't think it's just affordable. I think it's workforce. I think it's senior housing. I think it's a lot of different things. And then I see them being a bridge and an assist to the select board and to me, as far as, okay, great, we've identified we need this, 30-unit elderly housing complex, wherever, Buttonwood Farm, I don't know. And how do we get developers here, right? So there's a lot of towns that are using town land. Town is willing to increase its infrastructure, and that's a gift to the developer, because then that affords them the ability to develop at a lower cost. How are these connections made? What does that look like, right? And those are big conversations for voters, so you've got to have community buy-in on that. This is that committee that could get those community meetings, get people on board. That really is a big role. At the end of the day, they're not going to be developing housing, right, like that. But if all of a sudden the town said, oh, we've got 130 acres up by our water tank, and we're going to throw in 500 units, it's not going to happen, but you know what I'm saying. And I don't want to get that's not happening, so I don't want anybody freaking out. But, we're going to throw in a bunch of units up there. We've designed that. We've got that designed. We've got that ready. Maybe they're the liaison to connect a developer. This is a role that a lot of housing commissions are playing. So maybe they're the project manager and they monitor that throughout, just in some capacity. There's a lot happening in the state where municipal government is interacting with private development to get housing in their communities. That's about the only way that real housing is being developed, is when the municipality is taking a role. But I don't know how to do that, and I don't know what is a smart way to do that. So this is where I think you have a commission of skilled individuals that can be, and I don't have time to do that. So this is where you've got a group of skilled individuals to look at the whole picture. That's their focus.
So to go back to the point that Mrs. Guartino brought up earlier about the short-term rentals.
Right, this would be a perfect thing.
But I see this committee being 6 months out before they're actually standing and having a role. So is there something that we can do in the interim? Or is that her point, something that goes to the planning commission?
On the changing the policy?
Yeah, how would we do that?
I think
if
on
that's
that
the way we wanna
issue,
go?
I think we need to wait for Granicus to finish their survey, and I've made a note. I will check with Preston and get a timeline of when we can get that back to you. I think once you have looked at that data and see what we're actually working with, because I don't know, and we have estimates, but I don't know. Then that policy was adopted by the select board, so the select board has the ability to change that policy. I would certainly have the planning commission weigh in, since they were the authors of it. But that would just come back to you guys for a general discussion about if you want to put a cap, if you don't, that'll be a further
That
discussion.
is more, it seems like a more specific way to address that
Right.
issue, which is only a small part of this housing thing, which is the big picture. A lot of times, the impression I get sometimes with a commission or a committee is that these people that are gathered together to start discussing it, they're going to have the same discussion we're having. How's it going to work? What are we going to do? Where do we go? What are examples and stuff? Which takes it off our plate to do what other things that we have to do and off Julie's plate. But all in all, it's still connected with town government. And like Julie was saying, the purse strings still are involved, and that's going to be where the select board gets involved with the policies and stuff. I'd be really curious about how the Planning Commission feels about this committee.
So I
and
met with
their
them.
take.
Yep, so I met with the Planning Commission. I did meet with them. They were supportive. There were some questions about how will this interact with the Planning Commission. You know, they don't want their toes stepped on, rightfully so. So this is not a commission that's going to write, they're not going to write their own bylaw. Like, they're not going to be saying, oh, well, we want housing over here, so we're going to propose a new bylaw. That all is going to, if they want to propose that, they're going to propose that to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will decide, what does this look like, and then the Planning Commission will, if they're in agreement and want to rewrite something, then that comes to you. So there's a flow as far as bylaw. And once the Planning Commission knew that that was
The case.
the case, they were supportive of it. Because it's too much for them as well. They've got their hands full with a lot of great work that they're doing. So, they don't have the capacity to take on this beast either,
Definitely help
so.
on their side with the load that they have going on
Absolutely.
with the revision of all the DRBs and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're doing a lot of great work, and this needs to be done, but they're not going to have the capacity to do it. Not all of it.
So,
We've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm thrilled that we're doing it. Up in the State House, they're talking about 40,000 units that we need statewide to get there. So when you're saying 500 and,
I know.
I mean, I'm not saying we should have 500 in one place or the other, but 40,000 units to make up, it's not going to be easy.
No.
And S-100 is being passed, I think, so we should keep an eye on that. But I kind of see how this commission could go a deeper dive into that and to understand what Chester could do to attract some of the developers who may be interested in some of the stuff that the state's doing.
And there's a lot to look at, when we're talking about adding, we'll just go with 500 because it's out there. If we're talking about adding 500 units and
lofty goal.
and you figure there's 2 people per household at minimum, you're adding 1,000 people, right? So you're adding 1,000 people for emergency services to manage. You're adding 1,000 people for water, wastewater to manage. So it has a huge infrastructure impact. And so that all needs to be monitored, right? It's great to say, oh, let's throw out 500 units. But if you do that unplanned, it will be devastating to your community. So, it just, my point in that is it has to be planned to fit your community, and that's where this.
Maybe help too with how are we going to get money to expand the infrastructure
That's right.
that we already have with
Exactly.
water and sewer.
Right. They got to look at that whole
To have
picture.
It's all
More
related.
units on the line,
Yep.
Yeah,
it all has to be considered,
Well, and
so.
it also works better for housing. If you look at some of the urban development that I've done, is you really need to disperse it through your town than just make a concentrated block.
Yeah.
That turns into just, it's a horror show on your services.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, and that was one of the points that was brought up at the Joint Planning Commission Select Board meeting on Monday, was, well, we want to do all of these developments or interspersed housing or whatever in where we have the infrastructure. And that's like a very small part of the town.
Right.
I mean, we have thousands of acres in the town that can be developed into housing that doesn't have infrastructure, and why are we concentrating everything on this small area?
There's a change that I made that's coming back up, that's in, I'll say it backwards again, in the PUDs. And what it said before to get a concentration of housing is you had to be hooked up to the water and sewer. So we took that out. So if you have and make a water and sewer system outside, then you can use the POD structure, which can double the density.
It gives another option for housing outside of the services, as long as it's
Yeah.
engineered, approved, or whatever.
And it's not a subdivision. So there, it would end up being a shared property.
What community well or community septic or however that works.
But I still think the goal and what we're hearing a lot about because of climate is still, as much.
Right, you're not going to be able to go out, see, if you have a narrower density, you're not going to put that much together out there. And the thing is, with the illustrious state of Vermont water wastewater rules, the sewer system would be absolutely ridiculous. That's the problem. The concern is you talk about bigger things like this, when you talk to Jeff talks that he can have 100 more houses before he has a problem with the sewer plant. So, that's a real balance that we're gonna have to follow. We'll know better how the system can handle it, after he gets done the study that he's doing now. I mean, we do have water, but the wastewater thing is a balance, and that's gonna be a big nut, and we have to crack that.
We're almost at
There's a lot of money
capacity.
right now for expanding.
We're close to capacity.
We are close to
80%.
capacity, yeah.
Something
So
like
we
we're up
have,
there.
that's the reason why we're doing the wastewater asset management plan, right? That's what's starting it, and then.
And the second
I'm
well.
hopeful by the end of this year, beginning of next year, we'll be looking at the engineering for the sewer plant upgrades. But that's, again, where the Housing Commission is going to come in and have some input to say, well, we've identified that you could potentially add 500 units to your town. And so we're going to say, oh, okay, well, we need to double the size of our sewer plant, So,
But it's dovetailing all
it
of
all,
those
correct,
things
and it's
together.
the perfect timing for the discussion, because we are ready for a sewer plant upgrade. We're where we need to be, right? We're 20 years in, it's time to start looking at that. We're looking at our secondary well. So now is the time to start saying, okay, what do we want for housing? And not just housing, what do we want for industry? What do we want for business? Do we want a brewery? Jeff will shoot me if he heard me say that. But what kind of business do we want here, right? Because now is the time when we're going to go into another big bond to upgrade a sewer plant. You don't want to do this again inside of 20 years, right? It needs to be so a lot of work that's going to be going into that. But it's all
The
fitting
housing
together
piece,
nightly.
Hopefully, the housing piece fits into all
Yeah,
of that.
it's critical
so
to it.
that-
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's critical to it.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think this is a great first step. We're heading in the right direction to do what we have to do for the future of the town. Because growth, I think, is inevitable, but planning growth and making sure that it's smart growth is a whole different thing.
Well, not that I'm taking exception with what you just said, but we've been around 3,000 people for the last 20, 30 years. So, 150? Okay, so I stand corrected, 150 years. So I would love to see Chester at 5,000, but I think there, like you said, it's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of thought to do that, and I think this is a great place to start. So what do we need to do? It's going to be on the
I
next
just want to
agenda.
know from you that you're ready for this, so that I can go ahead and advertise for the commissioners, and then I'll put this on your next agenda. I'll make these changes. If anybody has something else glaring to them that's like, oh, let's talk about this, let me know. And I will get you more information on the difference between a committee and a commission, so that you can be thinking about that whole picture as well.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions before we move on? The discussion we just had seems like would be the perfect discussion for this committee, the newly formed committee, to have. A lot of it comes out.
So would not the first meeting, but would we be able to invite ourselves to the second meeting and have a discussion as a commission, newly formed commission and the select board, so we can have this?
We could,
Absolutely.
we're allowed to do that, yeah.
Yeah. I would like to make that recommendation that once the committee is formed, commission is formed and establish their own rules and all of that, that we meet with them at the first or second
Yeah.
or third meeting, whatever.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And there may be 6 months into it where we have the planning commission, the select board, and the housing in an all-day seminar about X, Y, and Z.
Absolutely.
So everyone's on the same page and doing the plan.
Well, let's not go all day, but
Maybe those details we can figure out, Lee.
thank you.
A commission select board retreat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
That's what I was
at
saying.
Arnie's place.
It already.
I'm game. I don't have water and sewer up there. so.
61.
All right, the next item on our agenda is rules of procedure. And I know at the reorganization, we adopted rules from the VLCT. And I basically, when I went through them, I kind of picked the changes that are in yellow, kind of the way we were doing things in the past. But I probably should have brought this out in front of the board to have the discussion specifically about these parts that are highlighted in yellow to make sure that was the consensus of the board, that's the way we wanted to proceed with our meetings and stuff. So we've adopted the rules of procedure for the town, for the select board, and it's a VLCT model. But in the highlighted areas are the ones that we have a little bit of leeway with this set of rules and regulations. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on board the way we were doing things, or should we change things, or are these okay? Or is everybody all right with these?
So just looking at the one under number 6, or the two under number 6, I can foresee in the future, not this board, but another board where things are more contentious. And so having limitations or asking for recognition before speaking might be required or a good idea, but I'm not sure that that's making it too formal for us. So every time I need to speak, I have to raise my hand, and you have to say, yeah, Lee, go ahead. I mean, I guess we can adopt this with the more stringent requirements and then
ignore them?
Ignore them? Well, what's the point of that?
But it's there if you need to enforce.
Right.
You know what I mean? If
But we look at this every year,
you will be,
correct?
yes.
Well, yeah, we're supposed to, yes.
Yeah,
you will
so, I mean, after the next, every year there's an opportunity to tweak
Change it. Yeah. So we'd start with the first one, which is number 6. There is no limit to the number of times a member of the body may speak to a question. A member may speak or make a motion only after or without being recognized by the chair. We've never operated that you had to be recognized by the chair.
However, we kind of go like this sometimes,
Yeah.
just so that know that I have
Someone would
something
like
to
to
say. Online, we'll interject and say, hey, Arnie,
The hand
and you
comes
go, Heather, right? So in actuality, I think we really do, I think you really do acknowledge us, and I think we do really kind of ask to get our word in. Subtly.
Yeah.
What did it say when we approved it before? Without or only after?
That's, we're picking between the two.
It was kind of both. This was adopted.
Without selecting.
Correct.
There we go.
Correct.
Thank you.
We're making this more official.
Got it.
And I mean, the way we've been operating is, well, without, or like you said, Heather,
Subtle.
subtly. So, and,
Well, I think we're pretty polite.
oh, no.
So maybe it's the politeness that,
We all just,
Well, that's all that rules of procedure do, is to maintain decorum. And if we're able to self-regulate ourselves, that's redundant. But if we're able to self-regulate, we shouldn't really need this. I'm happy without.
I'm happy without right now, too. And if it changes every year, we have to go back over it. We decide that because it's getting a little pretentious, or people are speaking out of turn or being rude about things, then, well,
then we'll go
yeah.
change it.
I like the freedom of people be able to speak up, because sometimes you're looking for recognition and you don't get it, but you want to say something. I'd rather the person say it than put it away, waiting for a hand to go up or whatever. I don't know. It just seems more comfortable, more being part of the group than waiting for permission to speak, like you're at the dinner table with your mother or something. Can I talk now?
Okay, without.
So without.
And then the second one, motions to close and limit debate, I say will be entertained, because otherwise things get drone on forever.
Yeah, and that one's easy enough because it's a motion and it has to have a majority of the board to stop the debate on it and stuff, as opposed to somebody wants to stand up there and filibuster, or one of the members of the board wants to do that and just start talking and talking and talking, and 2 hours later, everybody wants to go and the motion never makes it.
Filibuster.
I don't see that happening here,
I
but
don't either.
it seems like.
I don't know, Lee, you want
I
to
don't
ask
know.
me about the RV cleaning out again? Because I could give you a
Well, who
lesson.
could talk for that long? Not me.
So it will be entertained on that one. So this one on the agendas, it says each regular and special meeting of the body shall have an agenda with time allotted for each item of business to be considered by the body. So it's
We've never
basically
done that. You know, some-
time limit is what it
We
is.
discussed it.
Some people put it right on their agenda. This has 10 minutes, this has 10 minutes, this has, we've never done that. So
And we talked about it at one point, because I think after their in-service that they came and gave us, they suggested that we should. And as I recall, Arnie didn't want any part of it,
It's a hard thing to do.
to estimate,
To
yeah.
estimate times on here when some topic comes up and there's a lot of interest and a lot of discussion on it, and you say, well, I'm sorry, 20 minutes is up, we're done talking?
Yeah, that just, it seems a little tone deaf when there's a article of interest to the community and we cut off debate, or discussion. That just seems like we're not doing our job, we're just here watching the clock.
Yeah, well, it's self-tabling. You know, it just tables the item. It's like, because, we're done with that, now we're moving on. Did you come to a conclusion? Not really.
Right.
Well, and Springfield does, as I recall.
Do they?
When we looked into this.
There are
And one
several
of the
towns that
things
do.
that they like about it, I'm fine with going anyway, but one of the things that's nice is if you have an agenda item with 10, 14 things, and a citizen thinks that they kind of want to come during the housing.
Yeah.
They have a ballpark figure of approximately. So I don't think if we did do times, should be rigid, but there is some, it is beneficial to some people if you did it that way. Just pros and cons.
Well, that kind of gets down to number 3 is what I wanted to say something about, and that's the order it appears on the agenda, because a lot of times you will have people who will come specifically for an agenda item, and it's 5 things back. You know, if you look and say, all right, we have, 15 people who want to hear about that, in the beginning of the meeting, move that item to the front. Not to say that we have the world's most comfortable chairs, and Kathy did get a cushion, so some people are comfortable.
No one's
but
sitting on it.
Right, who's sitting on it? Nobody wants to speak to the mic. But I think we used to do that with zoning meetings, and we used to do that with the DRB, that we would move some things so people would talk sooner, rather than.
So that's saying, like, in the beginning of the meeting, are there any changes to the agenda?
Agenda to the agenda.
So
but
make
see-
sure that that's part of the
Well,
beginning of it.
yeah, see, but what it says right here, that, it says, you can't change the order,
Yeah,
period.
but read the rest of the sentence, Peter. It says, except that any addition or deletion from the noticed agenda must be made at the first act of business. So you can do it, you just have to do it
First
at the
act,
beginning.
First half, okay.
Yeah.
And at the end, it
So
says
we could
majority
add that
vote
to
by
the
it.
first part of it, and that'll be the statement, so we'll have that vehicle to change the agenda order.
Could be an agenda
I
item.
mean, we've done that before.
Any deletions
Yeah.
or deletions, any
Yeah.
additions or deletions, yeah.
But we'll make sure that that's there and it's obvious that
Yep.
that is an option to make things go quicker or smoother for people that might be coming.
So getting back to point 1, I don't think we came to a decision on that one. I personally don't see the need for adding time limitations. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to say, yeah, we're going to be done at 8:30 or whatever, but I don't think that serves the public the way we are. I mean,
But
that's
it
why
doesn't
we've been
say
elected.
that. It says.
No, I know,
with
but-
time, I think people go, okay, old business, 10, don't they just do 10 minutes approximately and the time approximately?
Well, either way, it's a guess.
It
You know,
is
whether
a
you
guess.
allot it or whether you don't, people could look at it and say, well, halfway through the meeting, 8 o'clock or whatever, but, and if we allotted time, it would probably be close to being a guess, too.
And that's what I'm saying, is that I don't know that we can. There was one thing that we had a discussion on a couple months ago that I thought was going to be 15 minutes, and it turned out to be an hour and a half. So I don't know how we could do that and in good faith present it as we're going to stick to these numbers. I mean, like you said, it would be something that we'd put in place and then ignore, so what's the point? My opinion.
Leave it out?
I say leave it out.
Yeah, me too. Pete? Heather?
I think leave it out. I think it's a hard thing to do, having chaired meetings before, and then you don't know where you are. I mean, it's just, when they run long, a lot of times you do just table the last couple things that are on agenda for another time.
All right. Public participation, number 2. And this is the one that, the 3 offerings that they give you, beginning of, end of, conclusion of, or discussion of. Well, basically, we've allowed discussion from the public at all those points. Usually not right at the beginning, because it's a topic that we're discussing, but during the discussion, at the end of it, I mean, that's happened, I think, all those, except maybe not just at the beginning. And even then, sometimes an agenda item starts out with a public comment that's on the agenda. Usually it's started with the board itself. So I guess they're asking to specify when we're going to allow people to talk on each agenda item, but I kind of like the flexibility.
What if we just wrote it to say, as part of each agenda item, but before any action is taken by the public body at each meeting, there may be public comment?
Yeah.
So it just gives you, then that gives, as part of
They
each
know
agenda
that
item.
They will be allowed to
somewhere in
speak,
there.
but we're not sure exactly where, whenever, whatever. And that could be a board decision, as we go along.
And we can set time limits if we need to.
Yeah, on something like that. And there has been in the past, depending on some controversial topics, when there was a lot of people, it was like, you got 3 minutes, you got 3 minutes, you got
Right.
5 minutes, or whatever. But
And then when
that's
you
something-
start hearing repetition, then you
Yeah.
cut off
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that wording again, Ariana?
So for number 2, you just start with as part of each agenda item, comma, but before any action is taken by the public body at each meeting, there may be time afforded for open public comment.
Do you want that last sentence to remain then? It seems like you should just come out.
Yeah, because you don't need it at that point. Or by majority vote, public comment could be stopped.
That's if there's a number of minutes.
Well, I think we could put something in there about the chair can limit the number of minutes per individual for public comments or something. I mean, it's at your discretion, Arnie, right? You usually give people plenty of time, and that's your style, which I think I really appreciate. But if you needed to have a limited, or if you needed to limit it, I'm sure you would. Have you ever?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I can't remember.
I don't remember either, but,
have.
I mean,
Well, during
But he has.
during the first discussion about the quarry, when we had 15 or 20 people here, at one point you said, we've heard from the majority of you at least once, and so we're going to cut off.
Yeah, there have been public hearings
Yeah.
where you've done that. It's been
Yeah.
several.
I mean, I don't, not disagreeing with you, Heather, but I think that if we were going to add something like that, I would say the chair of the board may
Yeah,
cut off
wordsmith it.
discussion, yeah.
Wordsmith it.
Cut
I'm
off
not saying
discussion
my
or,
words,
you know,
but I think we should
whatever.
just, it's at the discretion of the chair. Something.
Well, I think if we modified that last sentence under number 2, by majority vote, action could be taken to limit discussion. And that way, it's not just up to the chair, because what if we don't agree with the chair? No offense, but.
no, I kind of like that
Yeah,
better, too.
so
Right, but we
as
also-
far as the last sentence representing that we could increase the time, have just actually change the intent and say, by majority vote, the body may decrease or cease the time for open public comment.
May cease public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you just take that last sentence and repurpose it.
right, that's what I was thinking.
That's good.
That's fine.
And that was it?
I like
believe-
that.
I believe so. So we'll get a clean copy for
Yes,
the next
clean
meeting?
copy for the next meeting. Yep.
The next item on our agenda is our TAN note, our tax anticipation note that comes around due this time of year as the balance in our accounts goes down and our bills keep coming in. We borrow money to hold us over until taxes are collected or started to be collected in September. I guess this year, Julie, we're asking for, what, $900,000?
Yep, we're asking for 900,000. This is an amount that we historically have asked for. The past couple years, we've been able to get away with less because we had ARPA money coming in, so that helped cash flow. We had some really large emergency services building. We were able to use, draw on the bond for the amount of the bill, hold it for the 30 days, and then pay, so we kind of played that game a little bit to help with cash flow. So this year, we have none of that, so yay. So yeah, we need to go back to borrowing the full 900. This is also giving a little bit of buffer in case we can't get tax bills out that first week of July, like we usually do. So anyway,
So
900.
do we take the whole chunk, or can
So
we
it's
drop?
M&T Bank now, not People's.
Right.
So some changes came. To do the line of credit like we have normally done, they don't do that
They won't
anymore.
let us just draw on it
No,
as
we have to
needed?
do a full, you have to do a full note.
Yeah, they want the interest on the
Yeah.
whole note right
Yeah.
off the bat.
Yeah.
Have we talked to any other banks?
No.
Okay. Is it worth doing that? I know nothing about the
We would
banking
not get the money in time. Like, we need to
Okay,
start, we
well,
need to start
yeah,
drawing.
but
yeah.
Future
for
conversation.
In the future, we certainly could. A lot of them in this current market are not just, it's hard to get borrowing from some of these other banks, but we certainly can check.
They're afraid of the interest rate.
Well, it's
Well,
up
that's the
there.
thing, is
I mean, it's 4.58. I don't remember what it was last year, but it was like,
Like
what,
2
2?
and a quarter, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going to get interest starting the day they write the check instead
Correct.
of us drawing 100
Right.
now, 100 later, and then
Correct.
just paying
Exactly.
interest as we go.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're giving you fixed.
Yeah, which is good.
Yep, we have a fixed rate. We did then, too.
Yeah.
We did then, too.
4.58 is not horrible.
It's not, in today's market, it's not horrible. And we have until mid-October, but we historically, we will pay it earlier if we have the money coming in. So
Is
that
there-
will,
So can you pay parts of it, or you have to pay the whole thing off?
no, we could pay parts. We could start repaying parts.
So that-
And they're giving us a shipping label.
And they're giving us a shipping label. We are not sending
$5 right there.
it back ourselves.
So what is this going to cost us if we didn't pay it until the last date? A $900,000 at 4.58% for 3 months? Is anybody, the
Memorize that
math
in my
whizzes here?
brain.
No?
No.
All right, that's fine.
But that's per,
Siri.
for the year.
It's for the year,
So we're
right.
going to probably end up paying,
Right.
because it's only, I
Yeah.
don't know how many months. We're only going to pay, if you did it on the year,
Third of the
900.
year, 4 months.
So 2.25% of
If that much.
900,000.
Yeah, right.
Something like that.
Something like that.
So we need 3 different motions, and I always thought this went backwards, because the first one was the actual note. The second one was the power that we have to
You
borrow.
can do your motions in any order you
Order I
want,
want.
Arnie.
And the last one was the rules of borrowing.
But there are 3,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I would entertain a motion to approve the Town of Chester tax certificate on the tax anticipation borrowing of $900,000, which, when I looked at it, it seems like these are the rules that we're following for the borrowing.
So moved?
Yeah, second.
So Ariana's the motion, Heather's the second. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor of approving the tax anticipation borrowing tax certificate for the Town of Chester, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's the first one. Sign over here,
You are going to sign, is this like?
this
yes.
side there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why they did that, but that's weird.
First one, I don't know. And the second item I would entertain a motion on is the Town of Chester resolution for our tax anticipation borrowing. And this seems like it's the statement, to the tune of $900,000, and this is the statement that kind of says that we have the power to borrow.
Correct, this is your resolution, yep.
So moved.
Second.
Lee's the motion, Heather's the second. Any discussion on this one again? Any more? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the last one is the Town of Chester Tax Anticipation Note, which is the actual note for $900,000 with M&T Bank. And I would entertain a motion to sign this one.
So moved.
Second?
Lee's the motion and Ariana's the second. Any further discussion on this one? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? No.
Thank you.
Almost.
Next item on our agenda is new business or future agenda items.
So Julie, when are we getting the update from our financial, the people that hold our trust money?
Oh, I emailed them last week. I never heard back from Ramus. You're talking about the people from?
Yeah, yeah.
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 Let me reach back out. I did email him and I didn't get a response. Let me email Ramus again.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, Lee, was that regarding the solar field?
No, this is the folks that manage our, what is it, a trust account?
It's the wealth accounts, the
Got
wealth
it.
management division.
Yeah.
They come in and do a report every year on the investments that we have.
We have ones with economic development, then the cemeteries, what,
Yeah, the trustee of public funds.
Trustee of
Public
public
funds.
funds.
Economic
and what else?
development funds in there, I believe, too, isn't it?
Yeah, economic development funds and the public
That's another
funds.
big
Yeah.
one.
those two.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, because that thing's like quietly climbing up there.
It is, we need to do
The
something with
economic
it.
development?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like to the tune of $500,000 at this point, I thought.
Yeah, we
Well,
need to,
a lot has come down, so maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, but
yeah. Let's see what they say.
Yeah, exactly.
anybody have anything that they would like to see on future agendas? It looks like on the work here, it says the water sewer rates, ambulance position.
Water sewer rates, yes, it's time to increase water sewer rates. We haven't in several years. So I'm hoping to have that for your next meeting. I have some thoughts, but I want to chat with our auditor, who will be here next week, before I go off doing my own thing. I got to make sure he approves of what I'm doing. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, the ambulance position. Yes, I will be talking to you, I think, at the next meeting about adding our second full-time position.
Calls are up.
Calls are up and yeah.
So we mentioned a couple of things this evening, and I neglected to write them down, but did you write down all the
Rules of
stuff that-
procedure, housing charter
Okay,
will be on the next one.
thank you.
Yeah.
The
And,
water. Can I say something, please?
Yes.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
The water rates,
Uh-huh.
could you, when you report to us, refresh our memory? Because we hiked it the last time we did quite a bit in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So will you just
Give you the history?
refresh that so
I
that
can give you the history.
I'll know?
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else have anything they would like to see on a future agenda?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'm good with that one. Anybody have a second?
Second?
Leaves the motion. Ariana's the second. Anybody want to have a discussion on it? All those
I
in fa-
don't.
All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not too bad. Everybody go home and cover their plants and stuff, because it's going